Hello, and welcome back to another episode of No Niche Zone, the podcast about everything. I'm your host, Priscilla Davies. And if you're joining us via video, then as you can see, new hair. Who this? Your girl got her hair did and she's feeling brand new. Okay? Take me out the plastic. Okay. So just so you know, I'm gonna be acting a little extra for the next however many weeks I have these braids in my hair. Okay. So be prepared. Just be prepared. Be prepared to be sick of me. Okay. Um, oh man, what a week. What a year. What a life. Am I right? Last night I went to a sapphic party. Oh my God. AKA a lesbian party. Oh my God. It was so much fun, guys. Let me tell you, going to the club and it's all women. You just can't beat it. Even if you're not queer, like even if you're straight, oh my God. Like the energy, the vibes, it was such a, I've been to some I've been to plenty of queer parties, but mostly they're like mixed parties. And typically when queer parties are mixed, it's usually a lot of male heavy, queer energy. But it just, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's like everybody in there could just be themselves. They didn't have to worry about doing their thug thizzle with some like creeper creeping up behind them. And it just was vibes. And I had a great time. So I'm not gonna lie, I went to sleep very late last night. So pray for me to get through this. Okay, pray for me. All right, so let's get into the show today. Folks, last episode I talked about Tyla, South African singing sensation Tyla, and the controversy surrounding her colored identity and how she's been interacting with Black Americans since she came over here. And I posted, and them South African, especially them coloreds, they flocked to the posts. They were coming down to tell us, once again, us stupid Americans, how dumb we are, how we don't know what colored means, how we should know every single ethnicity on this planet that exists, and how, we're always imposing our sense of race on the world. And, that we're so obsessed with race, blah, 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 right? So I just wanted to address a couple of points that came up in the comments, because this is another aspect of the Tyla debate that we're not really talking about. That one of the reasons why, let me just sidebar this. One of the reasons why I'm talking about this Tyla debate, obviously, is because I'm Black, blah, blah. But it's a really rich debate because there's so many levels to it. It's not just the colored aspect. It's not just the race aspect. It's not just the cultural aspect. There's politics involved. There's real levels to this. And I love when pop culture meets with political culture and the nuance of wokeness, if you will, if that makes any sense. So, I wanted to just address these last 2 points that came up in my comments. First and foremost, one thing that came up a lot was, you Americans. Oh God, you Americans. One of the points that came up was a lot of you guys were saying how, we are so entitled as Americans to think that we can just push our culture all over the world, and that we need to respect the colored identity, and we need to respect that that's a race, and how dare us entitled Americans expect everybody to conform to what we want. We need to educate ourselves on other people's cultures. And I'm gonna touch your hand when I say this, South Africans, especially South African colored people. Where is Tyla? Where is this controversy happening with Tyla? Is this happening in South Africa? Or is it happening here in the United States of America? Did we come over to South Africa and tell y'all to use mixed race and multiracial and ditch colored? Or is Tyla in the United States telling Americans on American soil to ignore the history of the word colored in our country to identify her as such in our country. It's so funny how y'all are calling Americans entitled because we're asking for some simple respect in our country. I don't know if they have this saying in South Africa, but in the United States, we have a saying: when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And if you can't figure out what that means wherever you are, you got to respect the culture of wherever you're at. Y'all tell us to educate ourselves about colored, but y'all didn't educate yourselves about the history of the word colored in this country, the country that Tyla is trying to do business in. The country that Tyla is trying to get support from to blow up her career. The country whose dollars she wants. She's not checking for your rands. She's checking for our dollars. Okay? So I think it's really interesting how y'all have projected your own behavior onto us, because it's the real entitlement here is expecting us in our country to conform to your standards. That's the entitlement. And because y'all are so xenophobic and anti-Black, and y'all have such bias against Americans, you don't understand that concept when it applies to Americans. We expect people to respect the culture that they're visiting. If you're a guest in a culture, we expect you to respect that. None of us would go to Saudi Arabia or the conservative countries walking around in crop tops and coochie cutters. We wouldn't do that, even though American culture is totally fine to walk around in crop tops and coochie cutters. We wouldn't go to a conservative country and then impose that onto them. We would be the bad guys if we did that. But y'all can come to the United States and disrespect American culture and Black American culture especially. And that's totally fine, because y'all have no respect for Black Americans and you have no respect for Black American culture. The same culture that y'all try to steal all the damn time. So which is it? Do we have a culture or do we not? Because y'all seem to figure it out whenever you want to exploit it, that we do have a culture over here in Black America. Okay? So the entitlement really lies with folks who believe that Americans are supposed to acquiesce to everybody in the world. I saw this TikTok where they were interviewing street interviews, some Italians. I think this was in Italy. They were interviewing some Italians on the street, and they were like, you guys think that Americans, you're upset about Americans not like speaking Italian when they come to Italy, and they're like, yeah, of course, Americana, they're supposed to speak Italian in Italy, like, how are you gonna come here and speak English? Okay? And then this interviewer asked them, so when y'all go to France, do you learn French when you go on vacation to France? The crickets. When I tell you, the crickets. Because all of these Europeans be talking so much smack. The French, oh, those ugly Americans that come here speaking English. When I went to France, the looks, the disgust that they had on their face when I had the nerve to speak to them in a little bit of English. The look, the disgust. But hey, Frenchie, let me ask you something. When you go to Greece for a holiday, did you learn Greek to go to Greece for 10 days? But Americans are supposed to learn the language of every country that they travel to for holiday? Make it make sense. And I will make it make sense. Xenophobia. Xenophobia, point blank, period. So for all of these South Africans who have the nerve to be telling Americans that we are the entitled ones, expecting people to respect our culture in our country, I recommend you look in a mirror, because you're the ones that are entitled here. You're the ones that are expecting people to acquiesce and acclimate to your culture. But you're in this country. Okay. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. When in America, choose freedom, choose guns. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I'm saying? When in America, do it like an American. Period, point blank. And the second thing that I wanted to address, because this came up in the comments as well, so many people, so many colored South Africans are like, oh, Americans need to pick up a book, get a passport, learn about other cultures, learn how oh, you guys are so uneducated, you don't know about colored people in South Africa. And once again, I'm gonna touch your hands when I say this, South Africans, colored South Africans to be specific. Colored South Africans make up 8% of the entire South African population. So you think that Americans are supposed to be aware of an ethnic minority that makes up 8% of a completely different country on the opposite side of the planet? And we're the dumb ones? We're the stupids. In a country with a population of 59.98 million people, a country that is the size of 2 averaged United States states. 2. Your country is the size of 2 of our average size states, not even large states. Average. Your country is smaller than Texas and California combined. And those are only 2 of our states. You have the population of 2 of our states. Our country is 8 times the size of your country. You have 60 million people. We have 300 million people here. And you want us to be aware of an ethnic minority that makes up 8% of a country that is 8 times smaller than ours. The math ain't mathin', y'all. Y'all call us entitled. Y'all are delusional. I wonder how many British people had ever heard of colored people prior to this Tyla debacle, and even still have ever heard of colored people, because I'm sure a lot of Brits haven't even heard of Tyla, okay? I wonder how many British people have heard of colored people, but I guarantee y'all not calling British people uneducated, uncivilized, so stupid. I wonder how many Europeans know about colored South Africans. But you're not calling them uneducated, but you're calling us uneducated. Because once again, xenophobia and anti-blackness. So I need y'all to stop thinking so highly of yourself. You're a tiny minority in a small country that is nowhere near our country. It's absurd for y'all to think that, you know, we're supposed to be educated on every single ethnic minority. Let me ask y'all something. Y'all ever heard of Melungeons? Oh, you haven't? Yeah, that's one of our tiny ethnic minorities here too. Have y'all ever heard of a Melungeon? No. But does that make you uneducated, or are you just not concerned with our affairs because this isn't your country? That's another thing. Y'all, and this doesn't just apply to South Africans, this applies to the whole entire world. Y'all really think that we are thinking about y'all as hard as y'all are thinking about us. And the fact of the matter is, that's not true. Y'all care about us. We don't care. We don't care about y'all. I'm not trying to be rude, but like, we're not sitting here thinking, we're not having conversations about South Africa. The only reason why we're talking about South Africa is because Tyla came here. And we didn't ask her to. She came here acting a fool. A lot of y'all folks, you know, y'all have America on the brain. We live rent-free in your minds. And so you think that because y'all are thinking about us that much, that we're thinking about you that much. And we're not. And we're not. I hate to break it to y'all, but this really boils down to two things. We've already established xenophobia as one, and the other thing is jealousy, envy. Y'all are jealous of Americans, and it's really that simple. And I don't know how, I hate to break it to you, but none of us, we all just were born where we were born. We didn't choose to be born here. That's just where we were born, okay? And yeah, we got lucky. We got the hot ticket to be born in America. And I say this as a first generation American, okay? I'm African American, but not descended of African Americans. So I'm just African American by birth. And when I tell you, baby, I'm so glad I got that winning ticket. So I understand, like all my foreign cousins, they're dying to get over here. They're dying. And that's everybody in the world, because this is a place to be. And y'all hate us for that. You hate us because you love us so much. You hate us because you can't beat us. And you don't have to. Just be our friends. Americans are some of the nicest freaking people on this planet. We're not bothering anybody. We're minding our business. Okay, minus, the bombs and the wars and stuff. Okay. You got us there. But I'm talking about the average American citizen. We're just out here trying to eat and survive just like y'all. And you project all of this stuff onto us and then argue with us about shit that doesn't even really exist. You made that shit all up in your head. So listen, y'all 8% colored of the population of South Africa. One of the things that somebody had mentioned in my comments, it was a Black South African. They said that this is the most attention coloreds have gotten in decades, that they are basically like a non-entity back in South Africa. Don't nobody be talking about them. This is the most amount of attention that they've gotten in decades. And that's why they're so, vicious on the internet. And they're so desperate and thirsty to get on the internet and argue about this, because this is the most attention y'all got in years. Sorry, we don't know you. As the great Mariah Carey once said, I don't know her. We don't know y'all. So with that being said, I just, it's time for this debate to end. And the conclusion is this. Y'all South Africans tried it and you failed. Take that anti-Black, colored, white supremacist mentality back to South Africa, because we don't want it here. Case closed. And with that, let's move on to our next story. Did you hear that Joe Biden is officially the king of America? Did you know that? Have y'all heard? Oh, you didn't hear that the United States has kings now and queens now? You didn't hear that? We don't have presidents anymore, y'all. We have a king now. We have a king. And for those who don't know what I'm referring to, on July 1st, the Supreme Court of America ruled in Trump versus United States that presidents have immunity while in office for, quote, official acts. Did you hear me? The Supreme Court of America just ruled that presidents in the United States now have immunity for any acts while in office considered official acts. Hey, wow, wowie, wow, wow, wow. Folks, we are in unprecedented times. I feel like, I mean, literally this whole entire podcast has been me talking about these unprecedented times, starting with the 97 votes it took to get a Speaker of the House in at the beginning of the term last year, starting with the fact that the Speaker of the House was kicked out and then had to be, it's like one thing, starting with the fact that this is the first time a president has ever been charged with a criminal offense and convicted. I mean, unprecedented, unprecedented, unprecedented. Before, prior to this ruling, it was automatically assumed that presidents did not have immunity, okay? We never even had to discuss this. We never even had to talk about this or debate this because we've never gotten to a point where this was an issue before, where this was even a question before of whether, of course, presidents don't have immunity. Of course, presidents aren't above the law. Now, of course, we were pardoning presidents out here, okay, when they were doing criminal acts. Of course, we had a precedent of not actually following through and taking legal action against these presidents who have done illegal things in office. But needless to say, nonetheless, it was still a de facto reality that presidents did not have immunity in this country. And that all changed on July freaking 1st. So for those who don't remember, Donald J. Trump, in one of his criminal trials for overturning the election, his team, his lawyers, they attempted to get the case thrown out by arguing that Donald Trump had immunity for anything that he did as a president, okay? So they attempted to get the case thrown out. The first judges that received the case immediately dismissed it, threw it away. They were like, shut the hell up. No president has immunity. Duh. Get out of our faces. And so as a result of that, what they did is they appealed it, and they appealed it to the Supreme Court. And we talked about this previously on the podcast on whether or not the Supreme Court was even going to take up the case. If they didn't take up the case, that would essentially uphold the previous ruling that no, presidents don't get immunity. But they decided to take up the case, which was a surprise in and of itself. And not only did they take up the case, but they sat on it, which delayed the case and that has been Trump's strategy here. His legal strategy is not to win. His legal strategy is to delay until he can hopefully get elected and then pardon himself. So they took up the case and they waited until, I think this was one of the last cases that they adjudicated at the end of their term. All right. And in a 6-3, along partisan lines, 6 conservatives, 3 liberal judges, in a 6-3 ruling, they partially ruled in favor of Trump. So they didn't throw out his case. That's what they wanted. They didn't throw out his case. But they did say, and they didn't say that he has complete immunity, but they said that he has immunity for some, quote, official acts. Sorry, not some, for all, quote, official acts. Okay? So now what has to happen is they also added into their ruling that now the judge on this case, on the overturning elections case, Judge Chutkan, she now has to go in and review every freaking aspect of the case to determine what is considered an official act and what is not. And of course, everything that she considers not to be an official act, they're going to try to appeal it. Remember, delay is the name of the game. Delay. That is the name of the game. So imagine how much time it's going to take for her to go through all that nonsense to determine what is an official act and what isn't, what is applicable, what can be admitted and what can't. Delay. And also this trickles out to other cases. In the trial where he was just convicted of a criminal offense with Judge Juan Merchan in New York. In that trial, he was supposed to be sentenced. He was supposed to be getting his sentencing on July 11th. Well, now they have pushed that sentencing back because Judge Merchan in that case, with this new immunity ruling, is going to go back in and review the case and, see what falls under official acts and what doesn't fall under official acts. And that is going to affect how he sentences Trump. And again, that's going to take time. They pushed this ruling back to September, y'all. We were supposed to get a sentence for Donald Trump, his first criminal sentence, in a few days, to be quite honest. Or actually, by the time you guys get this, it'll have already passed. But we're now going to have to wait till September. Delay is the name of the game. And I want you guys to really understand the gravity of this ruling. From this point forward, any president in the future can do crime as long as it's considered an official act. So what does that obviously lend to? Basically, these judges, these conservative ass judges, have set up a situation where all a president has to do is manipulate the circumstances in order to make something an official act. And now they have criminal immunity, y'all. Talk about a slippery slope. Talk about a slippery slope. I want you to close your eyes and imagine. It's 2025, and Donald J. Trump has just been reelected president. What do you think Donald J. Trump would do with this new power? I just want you to imagine, what do you think that person would do knowing that every criminal act that he does would be considered immune? He would have immunity for. Can we say Trump dictatorship? Okay? Can we say Trump dictatorship? Because remember, he told us that he was going to be a dictator on day one. Y'all, if this fool gets reelected with this law on the books, shut it down, lock it up, close the shutters. America is finished. It's over. It's a wrap. That man will never leave power. Fuck a king. He gonna be a dictator, honey. And that is exactly what this conservative court is trying to set up. That is what conservatives want, y'all. This is the conservative American dream. They want to live under his eye, okay? They want to create that Handmaid's Tale world. They want to have a world where the president can do whatever the hell the president wants to freaking do. Because conservatives are fucking dumb and they don't see, what do they call it? The forest for the trees. They never think that the leopard is gonna come eat their face. They always think that these types of rules and regulations and laws are gonna affect those guys, those people over there, but it's never gonna affect us. That's why they sign off on this dumbass legislation. That's why they sign off on this dumbass nonsense. Because they never think it's gonna come and affect them. All right, time will tell. Somebody on the internet was saying that since Biden now has these powers, he should use these king powers. And I ain't gonna lie, you know, I like to fight fire with fire. And you know me, I've said a long time ago that Democrats need to jump in the freaking ring and get focused and start playing dirty, just like these Republicans. Because you can't, you know, what does it matter if your principles are intact when, you know, you're at the bottom of a freaking mud heap? What the hell? I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes it's like people who are like, oh, my honor, my principle. Bitch, sometimes you just got to do what needs to get done for the bigger picture. Okay. And so I've said this before. Democrats need to get down and dirty. When they go low, let's meet them in the motherfucking gutter. So I agree with that. I agree with that commenter. Like, I would love to see, and he never will. You know, Joe Biden ran to the TV to tell people that he's never going to misuse his powers. You know, those noble Democrats who never do anything, who get the dirt kicked out of them left and right by these unethical, shady ass Republicans who will play dirty as hell and don't give a damn. But at least we still have our morals and our principles. That'll keep us warm at night. Under his eye. That'll keep us warm at night. So, yeah, folks, this is the most recent Supreme Court ruling. And if you didn't hear about this, you need to make sure that you're keeping abreast of things like this. Like, this is how they sneak it in, right? All the hubbub was about the debate, right? And while the debate was going on and everybody's focusing on, oh, Joe Biden's too old and Donald Trump is a liar, these motherfuckers were passing these wild ass laws. And this isn't the only ruling that they came up with at the end of their session. Did you know that homelessness is now a crime? Yeah. Another one of the rulings that they made, the Supreme Court, was that they criminalized homelessness, y'all. In a 6-3 decision, the city of Grants Pass, Oregon versus Johnson, the court ruled that the Constitution's 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, does not prevent cities from banning homeless people from living in public parks. Violators can face criminal charges. So basically, they're going to throw you in jail for not having a house. That's what the Supreme Court, in another 6-3 ruling along ideological lines, the conservatives made this ruling and the liberals dissented. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court has now told Americans in the United States that you can go to jail for not having a house. Hey, wow. I need y'all to let that sink in, y'all. And I know that people are gonna be like, well, no, they just said that you can't sleep in parks. Yeah, right, because that's where they're gonna stop. They're gonna stop at parks, right? If this doesn't get overturned, the next thing is gonna be street corners. The next thing is gonna be under bridges. The next thing is gonna be anywhere that homeless people live or try to live. Anywhere. It's so terrifying to really think about what their end goals are. Can you imagine? Like, they're saying, if you can't buy a house, you go to jail? You're a criminal now? For being poor? And we know why they're doing this, right? Because how else are they going to get slave labor? Because they're trying, they're trying to create this homelessness to prison pipeline. Homelessness to prison to slave labor pipeline. That's really what it is. Because we all know that slavery was outlawed in this country except for prisoners, right? So they are creating a homelessness to prison to slave labor pipeline. They want those homeless people to get to work. Because homeless people are the only people who have said, you know what? We're not playing this game. They're the only people who have said, we are not going to play the rat race. We are not going to do it. And in this system, that means that homeless people just are waste, quote unquote waste. They're not fueling the system. They've said, screw you, screw your system. We're not going to make you rich. We're not going to kill ourselves to make rich people richer and buy rich people yachts. We're not going to kill ourselves to ensure that your kids can go to fancy private schools. We check out. We're not playing the game. And so the powers that be said, oh, you think you're going to check out of our game? You think you're going to do what you want to do when we're the bosses? No, no, no. Now you're going to go to jail and you're going to become our slave labor. I hope y'all are letting this sink in. Because again, this is the conservative vision for the country. A king president who can do whatever they want because it's considered a, quote, official act, and a country where they have an infinite supply of free slave labor by simply criminalizing folks who don't have enough money to buy a house and who said, we're not interested in playing this dumb ass exploitative game. Another ruling from the Supreme Court, the Chevron ruling in a 6-3 decision. By the way, all of these cases came down at the end of the term. So that's why we got all of these cases like back to back to back, because the term is ending or it has ended. So in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court overturned a 1984 ruling, Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council, which outlines guidelines on how federal agencies protect the environment, workers, consumers, and more. So basically, they overturned this ruling, which essentially makes it easier for regulations to be challenged now. Regulations having to do with environmental protections, worker protections, consumer protections, etc. So basically now, when all of those big, oil companies want to dump oil in the rivers and the oceans and the seas, and they want to pump toxic chemicals into the air and fill our food with toxic chemicals, the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, has given them the A-OK. They've made it easier for them to do that. For all the CEOs that want to exploit their employees, and want to screw their employees, the Supreme Court just made that easier for them. For all of the corporations that want to exploit their consumers, the Supreme Court just made that easier for y'all. Under his eye. Guys, again, this is the conservative dream. They want to live in a cesspool where our skies are black, full of dirt and soot. They want to go back to 1800s London, governor, where they could have little children doing, throwing little children in chimneys, having them work at workhouses and factories for 12 hours a day, breathing in toxic chemicals. They want, this is the world they want. 6-3, conservatives all voted for this so that all of their freaking rich ass cronies can make more and more and more and more money, and we get screwed. They destroy our environment, they destroy the workers, and they destroy the consumers. And we're just supposed to be happy and keep showing up. That's the conservative vision for this country. And the last ruling that I wanted to discuss, there were others as well, but the last one that I wanted to discuss, in a 6-3 decision, again, Ideological lines. The Supreme Court overturned a Trump administration ban on bump stocks after a gunman killed 58 people at a Las Vegas concert in 2017. They overturned the ban that Trump put into place. They overturned that ban. So now bump stocks are legal again. And remember, bump stocks are basically devices that turn semi-automatic weapons into almost machine guns. And the Supreme Court, conservatives on the Supreme Court said, yeah, that's what we need in this country. We need to make sure that people can turn their assault weapons into machine guns. Ra-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. That's what we want. That's the conservative vision. The conservative vision is like 1800s, 1700s London. That's what they want. They want to live in a world where people are dumping their shit out the window, breathing in toxic chemicals, working 14, 18-hour days, getting paid half a penny a day, where they can sell products to consumers full of toxins, where they can throw you in jail for being homeless. You know, that's how they used to do back in the day in England. That's what a workhouse is. A workhouse is where you go when you can't afford to support yourself. So now you go to work. You don't have a home? Well, then you go to work. That's what a workhouse is. Look them up from you know, what do you call it? I forgot them times. Them times back in London, back in England. And they want a world where everybody is terrified and scared because we know that people out there have access to freaking bump stocks. It's easy to control a scared populace. It's very easy to control a scared populace. And as usual, conservatives don't see the big picture, and they really think that all of this stuff is only going to affect other people who they don't care about, and they never see how down the line it's going to come landing on your heads. That's why now conservative women in conservative states are freaking out now that abortion and IVF are being attacked. See, they didn't think they were going to come for you. Y'all were like, oh, well, you know, that's for those other people, not us. Now look, now y'all are going crazy, losing it because y'all thought it was just going to be abortion. Now they coming for your IVF and your contraception. Girl. Y'all don't see the forest for the trees. So, folks, I want us, y'all got to make sure you're keeping on top of these types of things because we need to fight back against this type of stuff. Listen, the Supreme Court is a hot goddamn mess, okay? And, you know, the United States, we have lost faith in the Supreme Court. You know, a lot of people have lost faith in the legitimacy of it, but they can do real freaking damage. And this stuff, especially that immunity clause, y'all, especially that immunity clause, whoo, I'm terrified to think about how that can be used in the wrong hands. All right. I wanted to talk about this. This actually happened a few weeks ago, but I did want to mention this. Y'all know Warren Buffett, right? So Warren Buffett at the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting, which is his company, he said this, and I quote, "If we send a check like we did last year," talking about his company, and sorry, let me take that back. Quote, "If we send a check like we did last year," he's referring to his company, the tax check that he wrote for his company. "If we send a check like we did last year, and if 800 other companies had done the same thing, no other person in the United States would have had to pay a dime in federal taxes," end quote. Did you hear what I just said? He said that if 800 of the top companies in the United States all paid as much as he paid in taxes last year, none of us regular people would ever have to pay a red cent in federal taxes. His company paid a 21% federal tax rate. 21. About $5 billion. That's what it came out to. 21%, about $5 billion to the federal government last year. So he's saying if 800 of the top companies paid a 21% federal tax rate, 21% is a pretty low rate, mind you, okay? As an individual, I paid 25% tax rate as an individual. And most people are paying about that much. So this isn't even that much, okay? He's saying that if 800 of the top companies paid a 21% federal tax rate, that we Americans wouldn't have to pay shit. And the numbers support him, y'all. He's right. The numbers support him. CBS Iowa did a little story on this, and they calculated, CBS Iowa News calculated the 2023 revenue from just the top 100 companies in the United States. Just the top 100. He said 800. They only calculated 100, okay? According to them, if all 100 paid the same rate as Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, it would result in more than $2 trillion in tax revenue for the U.S. government, which is nearly half of all tax revenue that currently comes into the U.S. Treasury. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment. I'm going to let that sink in for a moment for y'all. Okay? $100 companies. 100 companies. If they paid a 21% federal tax rate, that would cover half of the taxes for the American Treasury. Half. So simple math, if we double that to 200 companies, none of us regular people would be paying anything in federal taxes. So basically, if a bunch of rich ass companies could just pay a fair amount, 21% is not a crazy amount. And if you actually tweak this, right? Because he said 21% for 800 companies. If we tweak this, if we tweak it, we could get it down to maybe 10% for 400 companies. Do that math real quick, and I'm sure it was right, okay? We could tweak that down to 11% for 400 companies. This boils down to greed, folks. This boils down to greedy ass rich people who refuse to pay their fair share. And I want us Americans, I wanted you to see the numbers to understand how much we as regular everyday citizens are being screwed. We do not have to be suffering under these heavy tax burdens. If companies paid their fair share. And it's what's crazy is like, dog, we're not asking you to bankrupt yourself. We asking for 1/5 of your money. 1/5. You still have 4/5, 20%. And you should be happy to pay that because you get the benefit of doing business in America and making money off of our hard-earned dollars. So you should be happy to contribute to the society that has made y'all so goddamn successful. I know it's almost impossible for these companies to actually step up and do the right thing. And I know that the way that our government is set up, no one is going to make them. But I want to give a quick warning to these companies. The boomers are not going to last much longer. We already see Biden and Trump, they're barely hanging on. All right. All of these boomers, what's his name? McConnell. Jesus Christ. Hey, that McConnell. Okay. Switching off mid conference. I want to give a warning, a stark warning to companies in the United States who are doing business and don't want to pay their fair share. Because a lot of these companies, not only are they not paying their fair share, they're paying nothing. If I'm not mistaken, Amazon paid nothing in taxes. Amazon, one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest company out there, paid nothing. Zip, zero, stingy with De Niro. Might like your wrist, but that about it. I'm gonna stop. We don't need to be quoting songs here. So I want folks to understand that we are being screwed here. And I want those CEOs and those companies, I want to give y'all a stark warning. The boomers are on their way out. Half of Gen X don't fuck with industry and don't fuck with CEOs and corporations. And millennials and Gen Z, we are anti-corporate as hell. We're coming for you. We're coming for you. We're coming for that tax money. We're coming for them back dollars. We're coming. When we get into power, we are going to make sure that if you want to do business in the country, that you're going to have to pay your employees right, and you're going to have to pay your fair share in taxes, and you're going to have to treat your consumers right. We're coming for you. You guys think that you're going to outrun us, but we're younger and we're faster. We're coming for you. And with that being said, we've come to the end of another episode of No Niche Zone, the podcast about everything. Guys, this was so much fun. Please follow the podcast at No Niche Zone Pod across all platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube. Get on that Discord, baby. Also, you can send in your listener letters to nonichezone@gmail.com. And you can follow me at Pris the Goddess across all platforms. Folks, we'll see you next time.